Next, brothers, I am very pleased this morning to introduce a brother who will deliver our keynote message here at this 2014 East Leadership Conference program. Our next speaker is a 1980 initiate of the Beta Theta chapter at Indiana University and is a past Grand Master of the Beta Theta chapter. In addition to achieving a bachelor's degree from Indiana University in 1983, he also earned his law degree from the University of Virginia. Brother Wagner would then move to Dallas, Texas, where he became a licensed CPA in the state of Texas and began a legal career. In 1995, Brother Wagner joined up with fellow Indiana alumnus Mark Cuban, and the two successfully launched AudioNet, broadcasting live sporting events and radio stations over the internet, at first with only a packed Bell 486 PC and a single IDS line, something that most of you don't even know what it is probably, right? As CEO, Wagner grew the company and expanded services to include corporate events and business services. In 1998, Brother Wagner and his business partner Mark Cuban changed the name to Broadcast.com and took the company public in the midst of the dot-com boom. The Broadcast.com IPO set an opening day record with shares climbing 249% from an offering of $18 to a closing price of $62.75. In 1999, Wagner and Cuban sold Broadcast.com to Yahoo for $5.7 billion. Good round of applause. It was then Brother Wagner's business success that led him to his ultimate goal, which was to give back to others. Brother Wagner started his own charitable foundation, the Todd Wagner Foundation, which provides year-round technology, academic, sports, and cultural programs for children in the nation's inner cities. His after-school all-stars reach thousands of children with programs ranging from chess to art classes to golf, running clubs, and math competitions. Brother Wagner also developed Miracles Technology, education, and life skills programs that provides an after-school program for inner-city children. This program is operating in 9 cities in conjunction with the National After Schools All-Stars. The foundation made a grant that unites the Miracles curriculum with the Boys and Girls Clubs of America technology program. Brother Wagner also built 2929 Entertainment along with Mark Cuban and has produced several movies and films. 2 films the company helped produce received Oscar nominations, and several other films have been extremely successful. Brother Wagner, along with his business partner, Mark Cuban, also owns a group of vertically integrated entertainment properties that include high-definition production companies, HD Net Films, distributor for Magnolia Pictures, home video division for Magnolia Home Entertainment, the Landmark Theaters Art House chain, and high-definition cable channels, HD Net and HD Net Movies. Brother Wagner has a stake in the Dallas Mavericks and continues to invest and nurture startups. He holds interest in Lionsgate Entertainment and the Weinstein Company. Additionally, he's founder and co-chairman of Content Partners LLC, a company that invests in back-end profit participations of Hollywood talent. Brother Wagner also continues to invest in and nurture a variety of technology and media startups. He serves on the American Film Institute's Board of Trustees. Brother Wagner was recently with us in Pittsburgh at our Supreme Executive Committee meeting and introduced his latest project, Chideo, to us and our fraternity, and we are now currently in the process of studying how the Kappa Sigma fraternity can use Chideo in our new database and website for the purpose of supporting a greater cause initiatives for the chapters and in support of our endowment fund. Brothers, before Brother Wagner comes up, we do have a short video that Brother Wagner has for us to look at before he gives his opening remarks.
Wall Street has high expectations for this internet stock.
The darlings of the stock market.
It was the IPO heard round the world.
The stock rocketed on its debut.
One of the most successful IPOs of all time.
And by 4 o'clock, it soared to almost $63.
I think that was the day that you know your life's changed forever.
Welcome to the evolution of social connection.
Charity plus video equals Chideo. Watch things change.
Chideo is your VIP pass to everywhere you've always wanted to go. It's an interactive way for you to recommend the content that you want to see from the biggest stars on the planet.
Chideo.
Chideo takes you beyond the social networks into the worlds of the biggest names in sports, music, and entertainment. And with Chideo, you're the one in charge.
Hey there, Chidiots.
If we were hanging out, right, and you only had the opportunity to ask me 1 or 2 questions, what would they be?
Here on Chideo, you get to choose the content.
It's gonna be fun, so stay tuned.
Chideo is changing your access to the world and your ability to affect it.
Today, our world is more interconnected than ever before. There are more ways to bring people together to make a difference and change the future. You can make a difference each time you watch a video on Chideo.
Chideo is people that you care about and things that you're interested in. It's one-of-a-kind content with a conscience. Chideo. Watch things change.
Me to speak for a couple of minutes, and then I insisted we do some Q&A because I always figure you're going to have better questions than I can think to talk about. So you saw a little bit about that part of my life, but there's a couple things I want to say since this seems to be kind of a day of surprises. One, what you guys did on the prayer canvas was just an amazing thing. I think it touched all of us. And it shows what Kappa Sig is all about. As for Chideo, which we will hopefully get to talk about for a couple of minutes, please download the app. Please tweet about it. Please post on your page. Anything we can to get the word out about what this is, and we'll talk a little bit about it later. And then third, in my little bit of a form of surprise, I would like to announce that I'd like to make a $100,000 gift to the Kappa Sig organization and ask that the national SEC use the monies as they see fit. Thanks. So, you've seen a little bit about the later part of my life and broadcast.com and Yahoo and technology and the movie business and philanthropy and all of that. But I just thought that this morning, as we then head into the Q&A, what might be more interesting to you all is kind of the path before all that, and especially where you guys are in your life. So I grew up in Gary, Indiana, which is pretty much a blue-collar town. Grew up down the street from Michael Jackson, only he left town and I stayed. And it gave me an interesting observation. You know, when I was ready to go to school, my parents said I could go to any of the 4 state schools because obviously the tuition was less expensive. So those were my options: Indiana State, Ball State, Purdue, or Indiana. Sorry, Purdue people, I chose Indiana. And began there. It was a great place to go to school. And now the part of the story to me that's really important. You know, I came there and then decided that I wanted to do something more, and I had heard about Kappa Sig. What I feel about Kappa Sig, you know, has been expressed in the things I saw earlier today and remains to this day. It is, without question, the pivotal turning point of my life. And each of you are now in that time of your life where you have that moment. And, you know, I always say I was GM when I was an undergrad. And I always say that if you can get your own peers to listen to you, you can do anything after that. And you know, now where I am in life, yeah, I have employees. They kind of have to listen to me. But when you're 21 years old and it's just your brothers in that room, they don't have to listen to you. And the lessons that I learned from that, of how to hopefully lead people, of how to hopefully say things that people wanted to listen to, I learned a lot from that. You know, and I was a business major. I studied accounting and finance. And I really felt like when I first went to school in Bloomington that I was kind of outclassed, right? There were the quote, rich kids from Indianapolis who had seen things that I hadn't as this kid growing up in Gary. And then it went off again on the next path of life. And I hope this is instructional to you all, because I think that is what life is. It's a series of left turns, it's a series of right turns. So I went to University of Virginia for law school, obviously went and visited with Mick when I was a law student. And again, I showed up there, once again feeling completely out of my league. All of a sudden, I had classmates now that had gone to Ivy League schools. I had classmates who were, one was a daughter of a Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. All of a sudden, you're like, what am I doing here? I'm this kid from Gary, Indiana, and now the competition begins again. But I feel like what I learned there was invaluable. So there's a story from there that I think is interesting to you all, and I hope as you guys go through your undergrad years and after that you can kind of relate to this. So at UVA, they make the law students play softball. It's part of what's required. You can't avoid it. Mick knows this. And needless to say, a lot of law students are not exactly world-class athletes, but they are really smart. And so I remember that, and I was not by any stretch a fabulous athlete, but I was okay. So at that place, I was an unbelievable athlete. And I still remember this story. So I played on the all-star team, but you played within your section. And I remember this guy who'd gone to Brown University. He was about this tall, and he carried a briefcase to class and wore a suit jacket. Now I'm making fun of myself. Every day to class. And we went out to the softball field, and I would pitch. You know, you're supposed to pitch underhand, you're supposed to pitch it high, but I knew he wouldn't be able to hit it. So I pitched, and he missed. So I got a little closer, and he missed. I got a little closer, and he was able to hit it. And I still remember him running and the glee, the joy in his face, right? This was a child who had never experienced many of the things that you all have thanks to Kappa Sig. This enriching life, this diversity of experience. And I still remember this was a brilliant young man that he didn't know you could run past first base. He stopped on the bag. That was the moment that the light went off for me that said, you know what? I'm going to do okay. I may not be the brightest guy in this school. I may not be whatever, but success in life, in my opinion, is being a decathlete, being able to do a lot of things pretty well. So you may not have the best high jump, you may not have the best 100 time, but you're able to put it all together. And that to me is what leadership is. That's, I know, what this conference is about. And that's what I think Kappa Sig teaches all of us. So the next part of the story is then I moved to Dallas. First off, let me say, I hated law school. But I wasn't a quitter. We learned that as Kappa Sigs, right? We learned that in life. So I kept going. I practiced law for 7 years. And then finally I said, I can't do this anymore. This just isn't going to be the rest of my life. My parents, as I'm sure you will experience when you try different things, thought I'd lost my mind. And I said, I'm going to resign from the law firm. Now remember, I had just made junior partner. I made a pretty good living. And I was going to throw it all away. And I walked into the corner office partner. You know, that's the big shot in the law firm, right? The big shot sits in the corner office. And I went into his office and I said, sir, I'm going to resign from the firm. And he said, oh, please, you're an idiot. What do you mean you're going to leave the firm? I said, well, sir, with all due respect, I've always felt more comfortable around the business people than I have the lawyers. I always kind of feel more at ease with them. And I was, a business major in college, and I just think that that's really where my strengths are and my aptitudes are. And he said, you're going to be back here begging for your job in 6 months. Obviously, I never went back begging for my job. When we went public, and you saw it on the video and you heard, we, of course, made the cover of the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, and all sorts of other publications. Well, one of the associates in the firm took the paper into his office and said, hey, looks like he did okay. And, of course, he threw them out of the office. The point to me of all of this is I went to Dallas thinking that my path was going to be as an attorney in real estate, and then I would get hired by a developer. That was the master plan to success and fame and fortune. And of course, the economy went bust. So instead of a lawyer working on what I had envisioned my life being, which was going to be working on developer deals, right? I was going to figure out how subdivisions got put together and hotels got built and be on that side and go work for Trammell Crow or Lincoln Properties or any of these other kinds of companies. It didn't quite play out that way. I was doing restructurings, I was doing bankruptcies, I was doing all sorts of other kind of work. And all I'm saying to you all is, that is, to me, what life is. You are preparing yourself for left and right turns. You are preparing yourself to be that decathlete that is ready to go where it takes you and seize that opportunity. I always say that success is the four-way intersection of luck, timing, hard work, and smarts. And I think they all have to come together to have something really amazing happen. But I do think that you can help that along. I'm going to leave you guys, and then I'm going to sit here with one quote that I really love. And it's, I fancy myself, hopefully it's true, at this point at least, as an entrepreneur. And entrepreneurs are a very kind of strange beast. And there is a quote that I dearly love. There's a gentleman by the name of Teddy Forsman. Teddy used to own and run IMG. He passed away a couple of years ago from brain cancer. And I knew him relatively well, and he was an amazing man. But he has this quote that I steal all the time, but at least I credit him, about what an entrepreneur is, and I'm going to read it to you. As a creator of the new and a destroyer of the old, he is constantly in conflict with convention. He inhabits a world where belief precedes results and where the best possibilities are usually invisible to others. His world is dominated by denial, rejection, difficulty, and doubt. And although as an innovator, he is increasingly imitated when successful, he remains an outsider to the establishment. And this is the last sentence, I kind of like this. He's usually found disturbing and irritating, and even unemployable. Thanks, and now I'm going to sit over here.
Awesome. Brothers, it's not very often that we have an opportunity to be able to ask questions of a man such as Brother Wagner. So we've got a couple of different mics placed around. So if you guys have some questions, please make your way to the mic and feel free to ask the questions. I can barely see because of the lights. Do we have some questions? Don't be shy.
I'm going to ask you guys questions.
Brother Wagner, how has your Kappa Sigma experience played into your success?
Well, you know, it's kind of like I said in the remarks, and I think most people feel this way. I do think in life you get out what you put into it, and I put a lot into my Kappa Sigma experience as an undergrad. As I said, I really believe that it is the most gratifying and the most challenging of a leadership experience. And I know for me it also made me think I could do this, you know, that I could lead people, that I had something to offer. And that was a big part of it. So, you know, what Kappa Sig does better than anything, you know, I sat here this morning and watched all of this. It is training young people to understand that we are all part of this together. that leadership is an incredible component, but so is giving back, and so is being part. You know, it was funny, I was smiling, because everybody likes the $5.7 billion part of the story, but there's a lot of the story before that. You know, there's a lot of the parts that aren't, talked about. The fact that, when we started our company, I took all of my savings, everything I had saved as a lawyer. So I took my savings, my 401k, I even got a line of credit before I quit because I knew I'd never get a line of credit once I quit. And I put all of that into the company. And there is nothing more illuminating in life than when everything's on the line. And I had, if you will, everything to lose and everything to gain all at the same time. And I think that anytime you make a, quote, high beta, not to be finance about it, but a high risk decision, the ups and downs can be pretty dramatic. But I call those years all I did was work and sleep. And that's part of what goes into something like that, especially, in the technology space in those years.
Great question. Do we have another question back here? Brother Johnson. If you would, when you guys come up, say your name and what chapter you're from, if you would, please.
Eric Johnston from the Alpha Tau chapter at Georgia Tech. Brother Wagner, thank you for being here with us today. Thanks. There's a lot that we learn as undergrads, especially about ourselves and life in general in college. If there's one piece of advice that you could give to undergraduates as we go through that college career, what would it be?
I think everybody approaches it differently, but I knew for me, I felt like I was on a mission. And college was the first step, but I didn't want it to be the last step. I tell people all the time, education is unbelievably important. And what you learn there is unbelievably important, because the last thing you want to do, in my opinion, especially at your all's age, is to have a lot of doors closed on you. You want to leave as many doors open for as long as you can so that you can keep making intelligent moves along the way. And so, unfortunately or fortunately, grades are a part of that as an undergrad, obviously, and they do open other doors, be it to a graduate degree in some cases or to a job. Now, it's not the be-all, end-all, but I do think it's an important part. And what I always view it is, it shows discipline. It shows that I have goals, I set them, and I reach them. So grades to me, if for no other reason, are that. Just like passing a big exam, be it as a lawyer or whatever the case may be, I think it shows that tenacity, which at the end of the day is, to me, what life is about. It is tenacity. It is, boring as it may be, it's the blocking and tackling every day to do the next thing and the next thing. And I've observed through the years, I've been very blessed, obviously, to have met a whole bunch of people that are famous names to everybody in this room. But I see a common thread among almost all of them, and that is their tenacity, their work ethic. It is sometimes, I think, convenient for people to say, oh, they are lucky. I almost never meet these lucky people. Instead, I meet these people that have worked very hard, that work around the clock, and I can obviously, spout off famous names for the next 10 minutes, and they all have the same qualities. Even in most recent, we talked about it last night on Chideo, which is our charity network that we're trying to build. We just signed up Pitbull, and Pitbull has an image, and I know you all know who this is, has a certain image that he projects on stage, but he couldn't be a nicer guy. And he couldn't be a more thoughtful guy, and he also couldn't be a more hardworking guy. And it just goes on and on and on, be it Clooney or Bradley Cooper or Jennifer Lawrence or any of the people that I'm fortunate enough to come across. Those are the similar components. And so I think college and your Kappa Sig experience, that's the foundation. You don't want to have like a really rocky foundation so when you get out there, the house falls down, right? You want to have a really solid foundation. And I'm not saying this because they're sitting up here with me, but the leadership you guys have around you is just amazing. And please take advantage of it, which I know you do. I sure didn't feel this when we were undergrads, and I don't want to speak for Mick, but I just feel like there's just so much more connection now between the alumni and the undergrads. So please take advantage of that.
Great, thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Brother Powell.
Brad Powell from Initiative Epsilon Gamma Chapter, and I'll open this up to all three of you guys because I know you're all three in careers that you probably didn't see yourselves in when you graduated high school and college. But especially you, I guess, Brother Wagner, what advice would you give to someone, you talked about starting your own business and putting your savings and 401k into it, and I'm sure that's something that took a lot of thought. So what advice kind of helped me through that thought process that you had to give up everything you had kind of worked for and go out on your own, and what advice would you guys give to someone who's maybe having that same thought?
I'll start, I guess. You know, I always ask, I feel like I can speak to, quote, entrepreneurs. That's the place that I feel like is what I know about. And I always say to an entrepreneur, I ask them 2 questions, and then I know. So I ask them, are you willing to put in your own money? And if they say, well, no, I'd rather go get those angel investors and those private equity guys and those venture capital folks, you know, and just kind of, they're not an entrepreneur. And the second question I ask them is, are you willing to quit your day job? No, I want to do it on weekends for a while, you know, kind of see if it's working. And if it's working, then I'm going to forget it. And that doesn't make anybody a bad person. It just means you're not ready for what that means, because that fear of failure has to be so high that you are so motivated to do within reason whatever it takes to succeed. And so I've been blessed with a number of mentors, Dr. Ryan being one of them along the way. And one of the things that always stuck with me is, you know, when you are comfortable with whatever it is, it's very hard to break out of it. But when you are, for me, I was pretty unhappy as a lawyer, right? And so it was easier for me to say, I'm going to try something else because this is what I want to do. And though I may fail, I'm going to give it a go. And I'll give you one last, you know, and this is a mentality thing. It doesn't make me right, but I will share what was always in my head. If this fails, then I'm going to go 10 bar. And then I'm going to 10 bar, and I'm going to be the best bartender they've ever had, and then they're going to let me manage it, and then eventually I'm going to own it, and then I'm going to own 5 of them. That's how you have to think, right? So that wherever life takes you, you're going to go up that path, and you're going to win that way. Like, that's why I shared the story with everybody about the real estate thing, because that's what I was going to do. I was going to be a developer. That didn't quite play out. So I think it's that mindset.
Well, I guess I'll tell a few war stories, but I visited the Beta Theta chapter at Indiana University when Todd was in the chapter and when he was an officer. And actually, my visit coincided with Indiana playing the University of North Carolina for a national championship back in 1981, and they won. Sorry, Tar Heel brothers. But I was there on the campus, so we didn't get a lot done, but what I would tell you is that the undergraduates who were in that chapter at the time talked about Todd being a great leader and his work ethic. And I've talked with alumni since then that Todd was in school with, and they're really proud of him. And the one thing that they say over and over and over again is work ethic. And I just think that's so important. I thought I was going to stay on the staff for 2 years, and here I am 35 years later. You know, and I mean, this has been the best education I've ever received. I'll be honest with you. I have a bachelor's degree and a master's degree, but what I learned in this is just made me the person that I truly am. You know, I've read something about Barbara Walters recently, and she has a building that's getting ready to be named after her, was just named after her. And they asked her what her secret to success was, and she said 3 things. Number 1, be the first person in the office. Number 2, do your homework. And number 3, be the last person to leave your office. And I just think that's so true. I've tried to follow those things in my life with Kappa Sigma. What I've known about this brother is that everything he's been involved with, his undergraduate degree, his law school at the University of Virginia, studying the internet, and then totally just rolling up his sleeves and getting involved with that, he knows more, he's studied, he's worked harder than anyone, and it's just a great life lesson. So often when I meet undergraduates and talk about, who are some of the outstanding people you've met, I remember him when he was an undergraduate because of his work ethic. So.
Well, in the interest of time, we'll take a couple more questions over here.
Panos Koufos, Psi Beta. Brother Wagner, thank you for being here, first of all. I'm curious to know if you can speak a little bit to how you took your company public and what it was like conducting an IPO, what it took to get there, what was your experience during, and directly afterwards, what was the change in the way you ran your company?
It is, certainly one of the greatest life lessons that I ever had. We were, of course, based in Dallas, which meant that the investment bankers had to come to Dallas, which, instead of going to Silicon Valley or New York, and we took great pleasure in making them have to come in to visit us to talk about what we were doing. The IPO itself, as you know, is typically done in kind of a roadshow basis. So you're going around and meeting the buy-side community in, 14 different cities, including overseas. And one funny story, you're typically doing a pitch deck, right, about explaining the story. These were the early days of the internet, and a lot of people didn't really understand a lot of what it was. When you would say we're digitizing content, they look at you like, is there like a big jukebox back there? I mean, what is it you guys are doing? But the way the pitch deck worked out, I always did the first half and Mark did the second half. And after you've done it 50 or 60 times, you do get a little bored. And so we were finding out we were having pretty good early success. We had been told by Morgan Stanley, who took us public, that everybody had placed an order so far, which was a really good sign. That's part of why, obviously, the stock popped on its IPO. And so I started trying to pimp Mark, and I would take parts of what I knew he was going to say and say it during my half of the presentation, and then look at him and smile and go, because of the fact that you're doing it so many times. So it was an amazing experience in that you learn so much about your company, you learn so much about where you're going. I have to be honest with you, there are times it makes me a little nervous about the buy-side community, that they're actually buying this stuff that they know so little about, and they are investing people's money, and sometimes they know, relatively speaking, so little about what it is they are investing in. But it was like getting a doctorate in Wall Street that you get very, very quickly and having to deal with that community. And then, I would never take a company public again. I would never want to go through what being a public company is. That would not be my choice now being on the other side. But we were able to obviously sell to Yahoo when Yahoo was Google, right? In those days, Yahoo was what Google is right now. They were the man. They were like killing it. And we felt like that was a really good decision, that they were going to be a survivor. And we didn't know what the prospects were for where we were going. And that's part of business, It's very hard sometimes because these are like your babies. And to be able to sell them to somebody, you are letting them go. You are letting someone else make the decisions that you have made for a very long time. And then it really breaks your heart when they take them and do what you view as really bad and dumb things with them. And so it is a process. But be it today, be it with Snapchat or any of these, when you get a $3 billion offer to buy your company, you nod your head up and down and say yes, right? I mean, but I cannot speak to every 23-year-old that gets that offer like that young man. And so it's the benefits of hindsight and of understanding that after that, you're able to do almost anything you want with your life. And what a great blessing to be able to look out there and say, okay, now what do I want to accomplish with the next part of my life? I will share this one brief story. I became pretty good friends with Quincy Jones over the years. And one of the things Quincy said to me, I remember, he'd done all the big fundraising efforts, obviously, with Michael Jackson back in the day. And I said, it's so amazing what you're able to do. And he looked at me and he said, Todd, what you're doing is just as amazing. He goes, remember it this way. And it stuck with me, and it sticks with me with all the statistics I saw of all the amazing things you guys are doing. He said, some of us lift a finger, some of us lift a hand, some of us lift an arm, and together we lift the person. And that's really what you guys are doing. And so, you know, these processes are just that. And so, you know, I think it's, the IPO to me is one step of that journey to then all the other things.
Over here.
Hi, my name is Ramar Hall from the Omicron Pi chapter at Carleton University. It's in Canada. Thank you for being here, Brother Wagner. I just wanted to ask you, what was one of your biggest weaknesses as an undergrad, and how did you work to overcome that?
My biggest what?
Weakness.
You know, I think we all have things that we view as you know, things we need to work on, you know, and things that we don't do as well as we want to. You know, I viewed, you know, probably one of my biggest weaknesses, but you have to try to call it a strength, I guess, is this single-minded focus that can sometimes also be a bad thing. But it is something that I've tried to use as a positive as opposed to a negative, you know, and I've tried now in the later parts of my life to always, I think, go down in the weeds and then come back up, go down in the weeds and come back up, because I think in business, you do have to pay attention to detail. So I think that focus, although a weakness, can be a positive, but you can't forget up here as well. You know, there's lots of famous stories about Jobs back in the day, right, of him calling up the engineers and going, why are there 2 screws on the back of this? Why can't we have 1? And we would all think, that is just crazy. This is what this guy has to worry about. But I think it's that combination of in the weeds, but then get back up and look at it. And so I've tried to use that weakness as a strength. And the other thing I think I've tried to do is surround myself with people that are complementary to my skill set. No one has it all. No one has it all. We all have weaknesses. We all have blind spots. We all have things that we aren't as good at. So try to surround yourself with those people. And I think that's really important too.
Thank you.
Over here, brother.
Robert Karam, Gamma chapter at LSU. After all your success and looking back now, what would you say was your most memorable moment as an undergrad Kappa Sigma?
Wow, I have lots of amazing memories. You know, I think, you know, I just think of all, it's hard for me to identify one because more than anything, you guys know this, it's thinking back with a smile on your face about all the guys you went to school with and all the things you did together and all the things that sometimes we got in trouble for and sometimes we shouldn't have done, but we did. I have one story, you know, when I initiated folks as president of the chapter, my very close friend was a guy named Neil Perrin. And in the part of the ceremony where you were supposed to kneel down, and I said, Neil, and he looked at me and he said, what? So there are those kinds of moments that are still in my head all these years later that you just smile, right? I mean, and more than anything, you know, there are those kinds of things that you think back and that you're still in touch with these people. You know, I still talk to them, I still see them, I still interact with them. We still get together, and that's just a wonderful thing, and that's what you guys are building here.
I think we have time for one more question. Right over here, brother.
Hey, how you doing, Brother Wagner? Thank you for coming. I'm from Theta Omega chapter, Arlington, Texas, so you guys are kind of hometown heroes.
Awesome.
And I wanted to ask you, this may be incorrect, but from the documentary I saw on YouTube, at the time, you had a lot more to lose with the AudioNet investment than Mark Cuban did, like at the very beginning. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of wanted to know, what did you see, not only in the entrepreneur that Mark Cuban is, but the person that made you want to invest that money? And better yet, what do you think he saw in you to make you want to be the investor for him?
Yeah, I mean, you know, Mark was in the technology business before anybody else was in it. So you got to remember, back in those days, there was no technology industry. You know, technology meant Fortran cards, right? You know, and little crap run through a computer. And so, and technology was the super geeks, right? Nobody was in that. So Mark had already started a local area networking company called Micro Solutions that he had sold in the mid-'80s and had made a couple $1 million. So he had moved to LA, taken acting lessons, and then he came, surprise, surprise, and then he came back to Dallas. and so we were friends from IU. And Mark, I went to him because I had been talking to some people about this idea of broadcasting sporting events over a wireless network. And Mark said, you ought to look into this wired network thing that's being put together. And he said, look, if you find something interesting, I'll do it with you. And that was really the beginnings of AudioNet. We were, as I'm sure you know, so we were the first in the world to stream audio and video over the internet. And that was a really challenging thing to do in those days. Mark has a gift for understanding technology and obviously a gift for frankly promoting what's going on, as everyone knows. That is a very great dynamic and partnership. We're still partners in 4 different companies today. And we still work together very closely on a lot of different things. And I was just out, 2 weeks ago on the set of Shark Tank with, things that we're doing. So, look, we experience things together that you'll never experience with anyone else. So it's a very close relationship, and, he's what he is. He's exactly what you think. Right?
Appreciate it.
Brothers, let's give a warm round of applause for Brother Wagner.
Thanks, everybody.
I've got something. Brothers, it is a great pleasure to make a special presentation to Brother Wagner today. He has continued to be one of our country's great business leaders and one of our friends. We've celebrated him as our Man of the Year. He's also supported the Kappa Sigma Endowment Fund through his gifts, and as you heard today, we're very appreciative of your new gift that you gave today. I'm also pleased today to give and present Brother Wagner with his Diamond Crest recognition pin for McCormick Circle, which recognizes brothers that have given in excess of $100,000. Brother Wagner, on behalf of the Supreme Executive Committee and the Endowment Fund trustees, it's an honor to present you with this recognition, and we also have a golf shirt to give you as well that you can wear. So thank you for your continued support of the Endowment Fund.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Not at all.
Thank you.
Enjoyed it.